Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
What's going on, Bucs fans? We're here at Pirate Parlay for a quick little hitter here talking about the Bucs and the wide receiver position. What thought to be a strong suit of this roster with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Abuka, their first-round pick, Jalen McMillan, and more, has suddenly turned into a question mark. Chris Godwin will not be ready for week one, likely to start the season on a PUP, which would mean the PUP list, physically unable to perform list, which means he will be out at least 4 weeks. The Bucs have kind of felt like that could have been the scenario. They had held out hope that maybe there would be a possible return before week one, but Chris Godwin has not been out at practice at all. He's not been working out on the side with the trainers like other guys who have been banged up. It just doesn't seem like he is going to be anywhere near ready to go for week one. Reports came out earlier in the offseason that he had to have a secondary surgery. Find out that he had to re-break his ankle for him to be able to have that surgery to correct things. So he's going to be out for the first 4 weeks, and matters were made worse on Saturday night with second-year wide receiver Jalen McMillan went up for a pass. It was kind of a high ball by Teddy Bridgewater, especially for the preseason. The defensive back took his legs out from underneath him, kind of a dirty, cheap shot play. And McMillan landed on his neck. He was ruled out for the game, walked off the field on his own power, gave thumbs up, took the cart back to the locker room. And then, speculation. He was immediately ruled out. Speculation on what could be going on with him. Will it be a long-term type deal? He kind of got us a little bit, quelled those rumors, at least for Saturday night on an Instagram post saying that, he would be fine. He's going to be good. Come to find out, that's not the scenario at all. Come to find out that he has a severe neck strain, as Coach Todd Bowles called it, and said he was in jeopardy of missing week one. This was at Todd Bowles' press conference on Sunday, the day after the game, where he said that there's a chance he's going to miss the start of the season. Shout out to Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times, did a little bit further digging, and that's not the case either. So from bad to worse, it looks like Jalen McMillan is dealing with that severe neck strain, and he's going to be out sometime. The plan is to put him on an IR on August 30th when roster cuts happen. New rules went into effect last year. You're able to put 2 players on IR that are designated to return. In previous seasons before that, you had to carry them through roster cuts and then put them on IR. And it kind of came this cat and mouse thing where, all right, we're going to cut 2 low-cost veterans who don't have to hit the waiver wire because they're vested veterans and they can go right into free agency. And then we'll bring them back after that, or we'll bring them back on the practice squad and elevate them week one, and then bring them to the active roster in week 2 when their salary isn't guaranteed, because any player on the roster week 1, their salary is guaranteed, and if you cut them, release them, you have to pay them that salary. So it's one of these things where there used to be a cat and mouse game. No longer. You don't have to do that. Now you can just place those players on injured reserve and get them back, up to 2 of them. And Jalen McMillan will be one of those because he's not expected to return until sometime after week 9, Rick Stroud reported. So from bad to worse, from worse to worse for the Buccaneers as they lose critical depth when they're already down one of their top wide receivers in Chris Godwin. Now they're down Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan for the foreseeable future and at least the first 4 weeks of the season in the case of Jalen McMillan. Todd Bowles was asked about this today, yesterday rather. He said that it's tough losing McMillan from a coaching and a playing standpoint. He was doing so well coming back this summer. He was very polished, gets his routes, he competes on a daily basis. He is real close with everybody on the team, so it's a big blow for us. Guys just have to step up. You don't want it to happen, especially in preseason. I don't think it's a good time for it to happen, but it's a shame because his growth and his potential was off the wall. But glad it's not life-threatening. Glad he can come back later on. We just have to have guys ready. Again, he's going to be out for some time, and he was looking really sharp in camp. He had a few down days, but a lot of people do, unless you're Emeka Abuka, who I think only had one all preseason. So it's a tough hit for the Buccaneers. They're down Chris Godwin. They're down Jalen McMillan. What does that mean for the rest of the roster? Well, Emeka Abuka was already penciled in as that number 2 wide receiver going into the season with Godwin sidelined anyways. So you have Mike and Emeka as your 1 and 2. Chris hopefully will be back by week 4, which would push Emeka into that wide receiver 3 role, and you'd feel a lot better about your 1, 2, 3 there. Behind that is some unknowns and some question marks. You have Trey Palmer, who just returned to practice this week after being sidelined for the last 2 weeks, and he has a big opportunity, and he has to really show that he can kind of get back to his rookie year form after a down year last year. He was one of these guys on the roster bubble, and unfortunately for the Bucs, there's a lot of teams looking for wide receiver help right now, and where the Bucs were at the beginning of camp was a strength and a strong point where maybe you could have moved off of a guy like Trey Palmer and got something in return for him, whether it be a conditional draft pick, late draft pick, or a player that you feel like you can help this roster. Now you're almost depending on Trey Palmer, hoping he can have a good week of practice and a good game so he can make this initial roster. Behind him, Sterling Shepard looked great in preseason so far. He's looked great in practice. Todd Bowles mentioned him specifically, saying, he's out there, he's barking, he's talking a lot with these guys, and he's been really, really good so far after coming in last year and dealing with injuries and kind of slowing down his progress. But, he said he's had a heck of a training camp. He's practiced every day. He's a big energizing guy out there. He talks more than everybody in a good way, in a very good way. You love his energy out there, and he made a lot of plays last week. So he's continuing to make plays. I think I had Sterling Shepard as wide receiver 5 on here before the injury set in, and that was including Chris Godwin. I think he becomes a lock to make this team. And then you're looking at the rest of these guys. Tez Johnson, their 7th-round pick. I had a 4th-round grade on him, one of my best fits in the draft this season. I think he's got a clear shot. He had a rookie mistake last week in the preseason game against the Steelers with a muffed fumble on a punt return, but he did some really, really good things with the ball in his hand, including a huge return for them in the punt game, and also picking up a key first down as well later in the game when he was getting playtime. He's another guy with a huge opportunity to go out there, seize the spot, and really I had him making the team, but seize a spot on the roster. But I think the guy who benefits most out of this is a guy who has done nothing but the right thing throughout the past couple weeks and last season is Ryan Miller, who's really come on. And Ryan Miller was a rookie last year, tight end at a little firm in college, made the switch to wide receiver. And it feels like he's been around the league for a little while, but he's only in his 2nd year and he's improved tremendously. He's a hard-nosed blocker. He knows, he's in the right spot all the time. The quarterbacks trust him. Doesn't matter if it's Baker. Remember that game-tying touchdown in the against the Chiefs was none other than Ryan Miller. And I really think this opens up a spot for him on the active roster now. So your wide receivers would probably look like, and we'll see if they just keep 5 instead of 6. Mike Evans, Emeka Abuka, Sterling Shepard, Tez Johnson. And again, I think Ryan Miller has a spot on this roster. So Trey Palmer, really big week for him. Really big week for Cameron Johnson, who's returned to practice as well. And a big week for Garrett Green, too, to show that he can make a spot on this team, at least on the practice squad. Dennis Houston also returned from injury this week as well and was having a really solid camp. We'll see if he can make some noise to maybe steal a spot on the roster. And unfortunately, Raheem Jarrett has just he hasn't really stood out this camp. So he's got a really tough spot. So the Bucs still have some good depth, and they'll have some good depth on the practice squad as well as the active roster. It just won't be what it used to be. Emeka Abuka, spike in production, I would think, throughout the first half of the season, especially with Godwin and Jalen McMillan out. I would buy him high on fantasy if you haven't already drafted right now. But for the Bucs, I think they're still in a good spot with Evans, Abuka, and Sterling Shepard as your 1, 2, 3. And then having guys like Tez Johnson, Ryan Miller, maybe even Trey Palmer being able to contribute in other ways as well. So, it's certainly a blow. It's not the end of the world for the Buccaneers. They still have a strong wide receiver core. They still have decent depth there. And when Chris Godwin comes back in week 4, and then you get Jalen McMillan back later in the year, it puts them in a better position to not only start a run towards the playoffs and really kind of get everybody going and make this team add a different dimension rather to this team that they haven't had all season and that teams will have to prepare for. Remember, when Emeka Abuka was drafted, one of the biggest things I said about this team with the selection of him is it teams can't just look at what this Bucs team did last year on offense. They have to plan for new things with Emeka Abuka and Tez Johnson. And when Jalen McMillan comes back, teams aren't going to have a look at all four of those guys in Evans, Godwin, and Abuka and McMillan. And it's going to work to their advantage. And I'm sure they'll be able to put some good matchups out there that will be advantageous to the Buccaneers and allow them to move the ball. And don't forget, there's Cade Otton still, who stepped up huge in the passing game. Devin Culp, I think, is going to have a bigger role, and he's a mismatch problem out there. And Bucky Irving with his best Wilt Chamberlain impression out there, if you listen to Todd Bowles, and Rachaad White, both capable pass catchers out of the backfield. And Sean Tucker's really improved in that role too. So the Bucs have a plethora of pass catchers at the wide receiver position. They have good tight ends that can catch the ball, make plays, and of course, they're running backs out of the backfield. It's not doom and gloom. It's not time to pause. I think this Bucs team will be fine. It's just not going to be as potent of an offense without Godwin and McMillan out there week one. So no need to panic. I think the Bucs will be in good situation still going into the season, and of course even better once they get these guys back going into the season. That's going to do it for me here at Pirate Parlay Podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. Appreciate you guys' time. Tune in to our live shows Wednesdays at 7. We'll be adding Fridays as well as the season commences. And that's going to do it for us here. We're out of here. Peace. Out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.